Hey, how's everybody doing today? So I'm taking a stroll through a nice quiet street, Bergenfield. We're doing the job over here and doing another project, another flip. And I want to discuss, a lot of videos I've been seeing lately where the people are talking negatively about home buying. You shouldn't buy a house now. Shouldn't buy a house now. And in some cases, maybe they may be right. But in some cases, they may be dead wrong. And here's why. You're going to listen to people talk about charts this, charts that, the hope equation, this equation, that equation. And there's only one thing that rules, over all, rules supreme over all markets, no matter what the economy is doing. And that law is the law of supply and the law of demand. And the problem is, if you're not able to meet the demand of a ready, willing, able buyer or market, the prices are going to go up due to competition. And in some markets, the supply is down almost 80%. So it doesn't matter what the interest rates are going to do if you don't have any inventory for people to purchase. So this is why, I'm going to list all the gurus, and most of them have never flipped a house in their life. Most of them are field real estate agents. You know who I'm talking about. And they're telling you what to buy, what not to buy. How ridiculous is that? I've been doing this 22 years. Thousands of transactions closed. Hundreds of properties flipped. And I'm telling you that, in fact, this is what I'll do. I'm not going to tell you my wisdom. I'm going to give you the wisdom of an old timer who gave me some wisdom. There's actually two of them. One named Mr. White, the other one named Mr. Brown. And that's actually their names. Mr. Brown was a congressman or a councilman, you'll call it, in Newark at one time. And every time he saw me, he used to ask me this question that he used to get a kick out of. He says, when is it a good time to buy real estate? And I would give him an answer like, well, when the market's down, winter time, yada, yada. He said, no, anytime and every time. It's always a good time to buy real estate. That was his question and answer. And even in his older days, before he passed away, when he had dementia, he would come up and ask you the same question. He was fuzzy on everything else, like your name, etc. But when you see him walking, he would just lift his head up and say, hey, young man, when is a good time to buy real estate? And he would say, anytime. So when he died, he left his family about 4 family properties, which of course they lost. And, because they didn't know how to manage it, they probably thought the old man was kooky and they never really, followed in his footsteps. Because, of course, they want to work for government jobs and stuff like that. So, and he owned, on one block, he owned about 6 properties. And that was Mr. Brown. I can still remember him to today, And I respect him for what he was before he had dementia and kind of lost his memory a bit. He was sharp, he was sharp like a guillotine. Anyway, then there was another gentleman called Mr. White. Mr. White was also an investor. He was more into commercial properties, and his kids kind of, helped him with the business somewhat, but they also kind of lost the assets. I think maybe one son may have saved some of them. But before he passed, we used to have good conversations about real estate and construction, because what I've realized is that even though these guys were successful, everybody knew them. They saw their names up on, their stores, or when they hung their, their business, Mr. White and Sons, yada, yada. Nobody would come up and ask them how they became so successful. In fact, he used to own buildings like this. Like those small commercial properties. But there's a few lessons I learned from their mistakes. One is that you may not be able to trust your kids to carry on your legacy. So what you have to do is figure out how to structure the assets in such a way that the kids don't lose the assets. So using trusts, LLCs, family foundations, etc. And the other thing I learned was that the assets have to be big enough that they don't need the kids' involvement. So it's good to start off with small properties, but eventually you have to trade up to bigger properties. You really have no choice in the matter. If you don't do that, well, unfortunately, your kids are probably going to lose everything. So anyway, those are the lessons I learned. Hopefully you guys don't make the same mistake as Mr. Brown and Mr. White. This is the Ragman. Like and subscribe. Over and out.